I'm 93 years old, and most of the people who knew the version of me that mattered are gone now. When you live this long, you start to feel like a misplaced photograph. The faces in the picture don't exist anymore, and you're the only one who remembers what was happening just outside the frame. I wake up slowly these days. My hands don't quite belong to me in the morning. They tremble a little when I reach for my glasses, and sometimes I sit on the edge of the bed and wonder how I am still here. At 93, you measure time differently, not in years, but in losses. My husband has been gone 17 years, my sister 22. My closest friend from childhood, I lost her number, and then I lost her altogether. It's a strange thing to outlive everyone who remembers you young. And yet I am still here. There was one decision I made when I was 34 years old. It did not look heroic. No one applauded. No one even knew how close I was to choosing the other way. But that single decision is the reason I am sitting here now, telling you this instead of being a faded story someone tells about what might have been. When I was 34, I was already tired. I had 2 little boys under 5. My husband worked long hours and came home with his shoulders tight and his eyes somewhere else. We were not poor, but we were always almost worried, always almost behind. I worked part-time at a bookkeeping office downtown, catching the bus at 7:10 in the morning, carrying a thermos that leaked coffee into my purse more often than I'd admit. I told myself I was lucky. That's what women did back then. We lined up our gratitude like clean plates on a shelf. Healthy children, a husband who didn't drink, a roof that didn't leak. What more did you need? But something inside me had started to thin out. A quiet kind of exhaustion that wasn't about sleep. It started small. I'd sit in the kitchen after the boys were asleep, staring at the linoleum floor. I wouldn't even realize 20 minutes had passed. I'd forget why I'd walked into a room. I began feeling like I was watching my life from the corner instead of living in it. One afternoon, I remember standing at the bus stop in the cold. The wind was sharp, and I'd forgotten my gloves. The boys were at my mother's house. I'd had a fight with my husband that morning, not loud, just tired, the kind of argument where no one wins and no one apologizes. The bus was late, and I remember thinking very clearly that if I just stepped forward at the wrong moment, it would all stop. The worry, the constant feeling of failing at everything quietly, the guilt of wanting something I couldn't name. I wasn't dramatic about it. That's what frightens me now. It felt practical, like solving a math problem. No one would have called me unhappy. I was functioning. I was polite. I packed lunches. I smiled at neighbors. The bus headlights came around the corner, and something in me whispered, not this way. It wasn't my children's faces. It wasn't fear of pain. It was something smaller and steadier. A voice that said, you haven't even tried to change anything yet. I stepped back. I got on the bus. I went to work. That was the decision. It sounds so small, doesn't it? Just stepping back. But that night, after the boys were asleep and my husband was in the living room watching television, I did something I had never done before. I sat down at the kitchen table and I wrote a letter. Not a goodbye letter, a letter to myself. I wrote that I was not allowed to disappear quietly, not from my own life, not without asking for something different first. I didn't know what that different thing would be. I only knew I had to try. The next week, I asked my husband if we could talk. Really talk. Not about bills, not about schedules, about us. He looked startled. Men in those days weren't trained for conversations like that. But to his credit, he sat down, and I told him I was tired in a way sleep didn't fix. I told him I felt like I was fading. I didn't accuse him. I didn't cry. I just told the truth. It didn't fix everything, but it cracked something open. We started taking walks after dinner just around the block. We left the dishes in the sink. We talked about things we hadn't said in years, fears, disappointments, the way parenthood had swallowed us old. I cut back my hours at work. We couldn't really afford it, but we found a way. I began volunteering at the library once a week, something I'd always wanted to do. I started reading again, not to learn anything useful, just to feel something move inside me. Nothing dramatic changed overnight. But I did not step in front of that bus. That was the decision that saved me. The slow cost of almost choosing otherwise shows up in the smallest memories. Watching my eldest son graduate high school, the way he searched the crowd and found me, holding my first granddaughter, her tiny hand wrapping around my finger, sitting beside my husband in the hospital when his breath grew shallow, knowing we had walked that extra mile around the block all those years. Life did not become easier. We had money troubles. My husband lost his job once and didn't speak properly for weeks. My mother died suddenly. My youngest moved across the country and barely called. There were lonely years even inside marriage, but I was there for all of it. There is a difference between a hard life and a life you abandon. I came close to abandoning mine. The turning point, I suppose, was many years later. I was 68 when my husband had his first heart attack. I sat in that stiff hospital chair watching machines breathe numbers onto a screen. I remember thinking, if I had stepped forward that day at the bus stop, I would not be here holding his hand now. He survived that first one. We had 9 more years together, 9 years of quiet mornings, of arguing about how strong the coffee should be, of sitting on the porch in silence that wasn't heavy anymore. When he died, it hurt in a clean way. Painful, yes, but not filled with unfinished sentences. Now at 93, the house is quiet in a different way. I move slowly from room to room. Some days I talk out loud just to hear a voice. The mirror surprises me. I don't recognize the woman with the thin white hair and soft jaw, but I recognize her eyes. They are the same eyes that chose to step back. What can't be fixed now is time itself. I cannot go back and be more patient when the boys were loud. I cannot undo the evenings I spent worrying about things that resolved themselves. I cannot call my sister and tell her I was proud of her. There are regrets. Of course there are. But I did not leave early. And that matters. If you're listening to me and you are standing at some kind of bus stop in your own life, maybe not a literal one, I won't tell you what to do. I don't have the authority for that. I will only tell you this. Sometimes the bravest decision is the quiet one, the one where you simply allow yourself another day, another conversation, another attempt. I am not extraordinary. I was not especially strong. I was just a tired 34-year-old woman who decided to try once more. 93 years is a long time to carry one moment, and yet I carry it gently because that small step backward gave me decades forward. I have seen my children grow gray. I have held great-grandchildren who don't know my middle name. I have watched seasons change enough times to know that nothing stays sharp forever. Not pain, not joy, not even regret. There are mornings now when I sit by the window with my tea and feel a quiet gratitude. Not loud, not glowing, just steady. I stayed. That was the decision. And in the end, staying saved me. If this meant something to you, hold on to it. Not because an old woman said it, but because you deserve the chance to see what happens if you do. I am 93 years old. My hands shake when I fold laundry. I forget names sometimes. But I am here. And that has been enough.